Beginning where Marx himself began, Karl Marx came up with the idea. He himself suffered from poverty, and he was born in a tradition, in a time when it was an idealistic world that was being framed on the basis of ideals. It was idealistic, based on ideals, and these ideals were being philosophized. Critics were philosophizing theories, philosophizing ideals, and these ideals became the tenets by which humans would follow the ideas and therefore become good beings. And this idealistic tradition is what Karl Marx wanted to go against. He believed that idealistic tradition that focused everything was based on the thought, that thoughts of some higher people, higher beings like the philosophers were creating the thought for you and they were giving the ideals to live by, was actually wrong. And he believed that thought itself was subservient. Subservient means motaj hona. Thought itself was subservient to the material reality around it. So the way your material life around you is, material you will take to mean anything related to economy or your money. So your money basically dictates your thought. Let's get into the details. This is what was going on in the philosophical tradition in um, around that time. And Karl Marx is born in the same time when idealism was being followed. And he asserts that thought is not what basically conditions a man. This is also the same time when the debate of nature versus nurture is taking place. That is it the nature that defines the uh, essence of a being? Is the essence of a being, essential being of a person being defined by nature? That means the condition one is born in, or does his nurture define his being? So at this time, nature is something that is being people have gone against. That nature is not essential for the bringing up of a human being. That means if you want to become good, if you want to develop yourself as a good person, a noble man, for you to be a noble man, you don't need essentially to be born with this condition of nature. You don't need to be born in a good family to have that nature in your genes, but your nurture will define your being. If you read good books, you will nurture yourself into a good being. Nurture, you will develop yourself into a good person if you tend to nurture yourself that way. Start reading good books and you will nurture yourself into good beings. This is 1800s, this is 1850s, this is the time that has seen many revolutions. It's not been very long after the French Revolution, 1789. 1789 was the condition where it began. French Revolution had taken place. It was the same time around which other revolution had taken place. It's called American Revolution. American Revolution took place in 1785. So around the same time, they've got two revolutions in their history, 85, 89, and this is in 1800s and 1850s. Did you remember the dates, say in India in 1857, you have the first mutiny that takes place, people rise against Queen Victoria. So what's being philosophized at this time? That nurture will make a man. Karl Marx also opposes the same theory, that idealization, that talking too much about reading good books and becoming a good man or nurturing yourself into good ones is only idealistic. You are living in the world of ideals. That is not the truth about the world. Truth about the world is based on something material. Material is something significant and an actual reality that exists around you, not abstract like the essence of man. It's not abstract. So everything he says is defined by your material reality. If you have money, your nature will be good because you have money. If you are poor, your nature will not be good. It's defined by the money and not by these ideals. Okay? Is this clear so far? This is the background. Why did he have to say about this? Why did he have to begin talking about materialism, materiality of the world, against the idealism that people were following? And why did he have to speak about capitalism at the same time? Capitalism at this time is where it begins. Karl Marx in his time found that there is a large gap between people who own money and those who don't. A large gap between people who own money and those who don't. He calls them bourgeoisie, the ones who own money. In English translated as the capitalists and those who don't. Karl Marx is a German himself. Proletariat, he calls them, or the working class translated in English. Now, owning and not owning money is what he studies carefully. Remember, in the initial parts, he himself was poor and he studied the condition. Why was this large gap being created between the two? Say, in his time, he only knew about Ambani's or scavenging worker groups. Or in poetry, you may have come across the chimney sweepers. He found that his age only had two kinds of peoples: the capitalists, the people who owned big estates, who owned a large sum of money they could not keep account of, and required hundreds of workers to keep an account of their money. And there were these people who earned, say, in modern calculation of it, 1,000 a month. And in this case, there was no end to their zeros. Karl Marx put his study into the same thing. Why this large gap? What is creating this large gap? It was the same idealism that was being populated by these men who wanted workers to continue to live in that condition and give birth to children who become workers like them, continue to be proletariats for generations to come, so that they can serve for generations. So this is where Karl Marx emphasized that idealism was not going to help proletariat, but they have to realize that the ideologies being created by these capitalists is only in their own good. It's only in their own favor. It's not going to favor the working class. The bourgeoisie will keep on reaping the harvest, and the working class will keep on sweating for generations. Before giving more details into what Karl Marx had to say, tell me, what do you see in your situation, your locality, your society happening on the same lines? Quick. If you can speak, Samya, this will be recorded for the lecture that will go on YouTube. So you better speak than write because this will not come in the audio. The landlords reaping the harvest, the land they give on lease. Tell me in detail about it. Sahiba, can you say this on?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, in our locality or village, there are really rich landlords who give land on lease to the workers. The workers work really hard. They make the land fertile or cultivate something, but at the end they get um, a small share of it. Not even money. They get food, as in the landlord tells them that you can keep this share for your family, and rest of the profit, for example, if they work in any apple orchard, they don't get the profit. They only get food, ma'am. And also I remember when we were doing Harry Potter, uh, we discussed about capitalism, and through the character of Hagrid, how he was being treated by the capitalists, Dumbledore or uh, Miss Malfoy. No,
McGonagall.
no, not Miss McGonagall. Yes, yes, yes. How they mocked his Cockney dialect or his appearance, or why was he given that heart.
Anybody else who has seen anything, read anything, thought about it? Where do you think there is the word you find exploitation in any any manner, any pattern that you have found? Tell me the experience.
मैम टेस्ट ऑफ द वर्ल्ड वो इसमें आ सकता है मतलब
Yeah?
नॉवल टेस्ट ऑफ द वर्ल्ड वो इसमें आ सकता है
Tell me how.
मैम मतलब टेस्ट का अब काम वगैरह करना बहुत ज़्यादा ताकि वो अपनी इकोनॉमिक कंडीशन बढ़ा सके एंड एंड क्या नाम था एलिक एलिक का उसका एलिक का उसको शायद एक्सप्लॉइट करना बिकॉज उनके पास पैसा वगैरह था.
Good. Anybody else? I remember Tess is also written in the same time. It's the same time, 1800s time. Do you have no stories to share, really? In your situation, everyday situation, all of you are students. Tell me who is the bourgeoisie in your case, who is the proletariat? Are you exploited? Exploitation in private schools, right? Give me the details. Give me the details, Samir. Yeah, or your university. Give me the details, Anika. I said in audio, this will be recorded. Otherwise, this will go blank. Kavya, give me the details of Lagan movie in audio so that this goes on record. Kavya, come on, talk about Lagan. Tell me who is being exploited, who is getting exploited. Is it the same time when Karl Marx is writing? Quick, unmute yourself and talk.
Ma'am, I think when Britishers forced the peasants to pay the double tax, otherwise they will have to. I think they were just forcing them, and they thought that the farmers will not be able to play cricket, so they were forcing them to pay the double tax, I think.
Okay. Yeah, right. And who is reaping the harvest?
From the Britishers, and the peasants, according to them, had to serve for generations.
Right. So generation will sweat and generations will serve. Good. Let's move forward. Karl Marx talks about the same thing, but he studies everything through history. Therefore, he is called a philosopher of historical materialism. Materialism, you understand. He was detailing how economy works, how function of economy occurs, the economy of a particular place. Over the history, he says, over the history this has been taking place. Over the history there is, he finds a pattern of exploitation. So he is not only reading, studying his place, his position, his society. He finds a pattern of exploitation throughout history. What does he say? He says in the very first lines of Communist Manifesto, all hitherto existing societies, all hitherto existing All hitherto existing societies, the history of all of them has been the history of class struggles. And he says this society has not been of a similar nature in all ages. Say, begin from 14th century. Now, you don't know much about 14th century of Kashmir, of India, but 14th century England, let's take the example of simply England because he's also talking about Europe. 14th century England, you find that the Chaucerian time was the period when you had peasants there. Under these peasants, you saw that there used to occur a peasant revolution occur in the same time. Can you give me the date? There was a peasant revolution that occurred in that time in 14th century. Can you give me the date and who wrote about it? 1381. John Gower wrote about it. The British Chaucerian. 1381 revolution, peasant revolution was written about. 81. Why did the revolution occur? Because peasants were not happy with their landlords. So what do you find in 14th century? There was also a society, which was also in that existing society in history. Karl Marx finds that even then there was a class struggle, but the classes were differently named. One was called the landlords versus the peasants. And only a little change occurs over the period of time, like in 16th century. The same kind of oppression occurs. Now there is a new class struggle between two kinds of people. Say it's not landlords and peasants, it's something else. Only the name changes. The class struggle remains the same. Peasants try to resolve their issue by starting a revolution in 1381 in that time. All history has been, all hitherto existing society is the history of class struggle. How did this situation change? How did the situation of peasants change after this? Because the revolution helped. With the revolution, peasants were able to change their situation and they were no more in the condition where landlords had an upper hand. But it did not change their position much. It did change their situation, but not much. So, what happened? In the resolution, a new kind of a society was born. This society was called a peasant society. Not the one that was born, I'm talking about this one. The first type we studied, say it's the peasant society. The society that's based on farming. With the change that occurred, what do you study after this in literature? You see there the dramas, starting of dramas. Who are the owners of? If you remember the cycles, the four cycles. There's a class who own these cycles. Who are the owners of these cycles? This was after the struggle that a middle class started uprising, started rising. Because of the rising of the middle class, a new society was born out of it. A new society was born. Now, it wasn't completely based on farming. There was a section of the people that did not earn their living by means of farming or by owning lands, but there were other means of earning as well, like theaters. Theaters became one more means of earning. And now the society changes. No, the struggle is not between the landlords and the peasants, but the struggle is of a different sort. But yes, still there is a struggle. So, these people, this middle class, they are called guildmen. Also, if you have studied in history, they own the guilds. Guilds mean they had enough money, they could uh, uh, buy and they could afford these cycles. They could afford to dramatize on theater. So, what were they called? They were called guildsmen. They were the owners of the guilds. Guilds were big tradesmen. They were big tradesmen, and they, in order to have their guilds function, they required people who would work for them, who would be, say, the actors in these cycles. Who did these actors belong to? Which kind of um, category would they belong to? They were workers for the guildmen. There is another term that's used uh, for this kind of a category, they're called journeymen. So if they were the traders, they would trade people or they would trade art. And who did they take help of? They took the help of journeymen to work for them. And similarly, this was the medieval times. Feudal lords were changed from feudal lords, guildsmen um, took power, and then modern society came in. What do you see after that? Is there just this means of um, what happened, say, in 18th century? After this time, we are taking a break of 200 years. After 200 years, 200 more years, new changes occur. Industrialization begins. Now there are industries. There is one more means of earning. There's a large chunk of people who are the middle class, but they are no more the class of people like tradesmen were here. Very powerful. So this third kind of society that's created now has those in power are now called masters, and those serving them are called servants. And then after the industrialization is on its peak, the categorization changes to capitalist and working class. Clear so far? Any questions? Anything you find similar in your locality, in your places around you? Anything you find that resonates with something that's happening currently around you? Like the examples we came across from Sahiba. There is still the kind of idea running in some parts in our place that workers are not paid in cash but still paid in kind. So we thought barter system had come to an end. It still hasn't. Your labor is taken against your meals. Any story you
मैम
want to share?
प्राइवेट
Details. Give me the
स्कूल्स का
details.
जी मैम मैम मतलब प्राइवेट स्कूल फ़ी बहुत ज़्यादा होता है लेकिन स्टिल प्राइवेट स्कूल टीचर्स को पे सैलरी उतनी नहीं दी जाती मीन्स मैक्सिमम पोर्शन वेल्थ का जाता है प्राइवेट स्कूल ओनर्स की तरफ ही और जो
Let's
काम
take the
कर रहे हैं
example.
उनको
How much is the fee? Let's begin. Let's begin imagining the kind of exploitation it is. Huh? Okay. So tell me the number of students they will have. Tell me what is the fee.
मैम एक स्कूल
Suppose,
था
just
वहाँ पे
suppose. Yeah.
जी जी मैम 800 पर मंथ एंड देयर वर सम 700 to 800 स्टूडेंट्स एंड टीचर्स को दिया जाता था पर मंथ 2500
So monthly income of the school is 6,40,000.
जी मैम
And how many teachers did they have for 800 students? Number of
मैम
teachers would be around
आई गेस
10,
15 or 18 15 I guess
say 20. And each one of them was paid 2,500. So how much
500
goes into the payment of the fee? 50,000 goes into the payment of the fee. What
yes
remains?
ma'am
What remains?
5
5 lakh
5 lakh
90,000.
90,000
5 lakh 90,000. Let's take the non-teaching.
staff
Yeah, how much will, how many of them will they be? Say
I guess
20. What will the fee be? 1,000? 1,000?
yes ma'am
20,000 more. Okay,
uh-huh.
20,000 more.
Five,
What remains?
5
1 lakh
70,000
70,000.
70.
Okay. Uh, non-teaching. Now we also require some sweepers. Let's have 5 sweepers, cleaners, or
Yes ma'am
PAs. Salary will be say same 1,000 per day.
1,000
5,000. Sorry, 1,000 per month. 5,000.
5,65,000
Say repair. So let's keep year monthly repair of the institute. It takes 10,000, and electricity bill, everything takes 10,000 because it's a small school. 10 more thousand. So 5,55,000 goes is with the owner of the school, and he only has to now pay the principal. Now this is the people who are on top positions. How many of them are there? Say there's a principal, there's a vice principal, 20, 50, 35,000. He plays with these little thousands and does not tell you about the lakhs he is earning in. I'll give you an example myself. I was working in a multinational company. This company was asking me to do 17 projects in 7 months. Say 17, but yeah, in 6 months. I was the project manager. Each project, the cost of each project was 15 to 20 lakhs. I can't even count that. Say keep this just 10. And 20 lakh is what they earn out of these 10 projects that I am doing. So I earn for the company 200 lakhs. Can you keep the count? For 6 months, I earn the company 200 lakhs. The money that goes with the team, I have a team of 7 people. 6 months salary of 7 people. Do you know how much it is? It's not 7 lakhs. It's less than 7 lakhs. And so is my salary. So my company was basically taking 1,933 lakhs per 6 months of my work and my team's work. That's how MNCs function. And the worst part of it was that the bills were with me. I was creating the bills and signing them. Result? I left the place because I had read Marxism. Do you have any other experiences you want to share?
Ma'am, um,
Yeah.
from our area, there's going to be construction of a national highway, and the government, जिनका भी जमीन आ रहा है उसके नीचे the government pays them thrice, जो भी price होता है उसका into three times more देते हैं उनको. बट एट द एंड जब वो नेशनल हाईवे बनेगा, जो रोड टैक्सेस उनसे आएंगे, या अभी लोगों को लग रहा है कि इट्स अल्योरिंग कि हमको 3 गुना ज्यादा मिल रहा है, तो इट्स नॉट अ बिग डील. बट फिर जो रोड टैक्सेस आएंगे या जो भी फिर उनसे इनकम मिलेगा गवर्नमेंट को, आई थिंक दैट्स मोर. तो यस.
So the government basically, with the creation of the roads, has a road map. Their roadmap says it will help us in earning 5,000 crores. And of investment, their plan is that of these 500 crores, 20 crores must go to, no, I think, no, it's not in there. It's, just give me a moment. It's never in 1,000 crores when it comes to national highways. It's a 20 lakh crores going to the roadmap. The earning will be 20 lakh crores. Investment of this should be creation. It takes 50,000 crores go into the creation of the road. Of this 50,000 crores, 100 crores go to the people who own the land. This is not even in the imagination of people. Less than 1 minute left. The rest will be taken up in the next lecture. Thank you so much.